There is a brutal, silent truth that separates kings from casualties. A truth buried beneath every quote, every morning routine, every productivity hack. A truth most avoid because it burns too close to the skin. Discipline is not about control. Discipline is about death. Not death of life, but death of identity, death of comfort, death of every version of you that thought convenience and greatness could live in the same room. Because the truth is this: discipline is not a lifestyle, it's a funeral. Every day you are forced to bury the weaker you, the one that wants 5 more minutes of sleep, the one that wants to scroll, the one that wants to feel good instead of becoming great. And no one talks about that part. They sell you the illusion of balance. They market discipline like a polished morning coffee ritual. But that's not what it feels like. Discipline doesn't feel clean. It feels violent. It is the daily murder of impulse. It is war. Every morning, a war between the man you are and the man you could be. And if you don't choose who dies, the world will choose for you. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Discipline is that act of conscious violence, of reaching down into your primal chaos and saying, no, you don't run this anymore. But let's go deeper. Let's drop the fantasy. You think discipline is hard? You know what's harder? Living a life where you never trust yourself. That's hell. Waking up in a body that knows you betrayed it again. Carrying a mind that remembers every broken promise. Building a soul around the architecture of excuses. That is not freedom. That is spiritual poverty. Discipline is not restriction. It's rescue from the lower self, from the limbic loop, from the never-ending spiral of chaos, masked as choice. Because in this modern world, everything is designed to pull you away from your center. Every notification, every trend, every dopamine spike. And discipline, true discipline, is rebellion. It is a refusal to be ruled by the environment. It is the moment you become the environment, not with willpower, but with identity. Discipline is not something you do. It's something you are. The disciplined man doesn't choose between working and quitting. He doesn't negotiate with feelings. He doesn't ask, do I feel like it today? He moves, not because it's easy, but because he buried the part of himself that needed it to be. That's the part they never teach. They show you the gym. They don't show you the graveyard. But behind every disciplined man is a trail of corpses, identities that once begged to be spared, voices that once said, take it easy, days that whispered, just skip this one. He killed them all, quietly, ruthlessly, until nothing was left but focus, until nothing was left but the truth. And the truth is this: discipline is painful, but it is pure. And in a world built on compromise and comfort, purity is the new superpower, because purity is rare. And in the age of filters and shortcuts, the rarest currency is a man who keeps his word to himself, not for applause, not for validation, but because he refuses to live one more day as a slave to his own avoidance. Discipline is the moment you walk into your own mind like a battlefield and say, this will be run by mission, or it won't be run at all. No negotiations, no justifications, only execution. It's not about waking up early. It's about waking up different, with a spine made of principle and a mind armored in clarity. Discipline is the most intimate form of self-respect. Not the loud kind, not the kind that flexes in gyms or brags on podcasts. The quiet kind, the kind that folds its laundry, turns off the phone, shuts out the world, and builds in silence while everyone else is performing. Because here's what no one tells you. Discipline is lonely. It is the choice to leave the crowd, to walk away from the mob of mediocrity, to eat alone, think alone, rise alone. Not because you think you're better, but because you know what it costs to blend in. It costs your becoming. So you isolate not for ego, but for alignment. You disappear, not for drama, but to recode your nervous system for the reality your destiny demands. Because the truth is brutal. Every future you want already exists. But the man you are right now cannot hold it. He would drop it. He would destroy it. He would sabotage it the second it arrived. That's why discipline exists. Not to punish you, but to prepare you, to make you strong enough to survive the very thing you're praying for. You want power? Build a body that can carry it. You want peace? Train the mind that can guard it. You want love? Discipline the heart to receive it without fleeing. Discipline is not a grind. It's a gateway. It is the architect of men who were never supposed to be remembered, but are, because while others were waiting for motivation, you were building momentum. While others were sharing quotes, you were becoming the kind of man others quote. Discipline made you dangerous, not to others, but to everything in you that once doubted your own greatness. And now you no longer ask, what should I do? You do it. Because doing is no longer something you schedule. It is who you are. It's the gravity that bends your entire reality into alignment. You move from identity, not emotion. From command, not compromise. From future self, not present feeling. That's the power of discipline. It doesn't just change your habits. It changes your nature. And when your nature changes, your life bends to match it. And when your life begins to bend, not because of luck, not because of timing, but because you bent yourself first, that's when you realize discipline is alchemy. It turns chaos into clarity. It turns shame into structure. It turns lost time into legacy. Because every disciplined act is a vote for your future. Every rep, every page, every hour you protect, like it's sacred, is a brick in the kingdom no one else sees yet. But you see it. And you keep building. Not because it's easy, but because it's non-negotiable. You've tasted the alternative. You've lived what it feels like to betray yourself. You know the sting of quitting quietly, of lying to yourself with soft words like tomorrow and maybe, of watching the days bleed into each other while the fire inside you flickers and dims. No more. Discipline is the dam that stops the leak. It's the fire that dries the flood. It's the sharp, sacred no that makes space for the yes your future self deserves. And it's not just about you, because the most dangerous myth is that discipline is selfish. That locking in, zoning out, tuning the world down makes you rigid or disconnected. But the opposite is true. A disciplined man becomes the anchor for others. He becomes the gravity in rooms of noise. He becomes the lighthouse for men still lost in the storm. Because when you show others what it looks like to live without negotiation, you give them permission to do the same. Discipline becomes transmission. Your example becomes a frequency. And suddenly, you're no longer leading with words. You're leading with wiring. They feel it in your posture, in your presence, in the way you say no without guilt, in the way you show up the same way on day one as on day 100. That's what creates reverence. not charisma, not noise, but consistency so unshakable that the world starts to believe in your standard because you never broke it. This is why discipline must come first, before vision, before strategy, before execution. Because without discipline, your future becomes a wish. But with it, your future becomes inevitable. And inevitability, that's the rarest form of power. Not because it's loud, but because it's unchallenged. You walk into rooms differently when your destiny is no longer up for debate. You move through days with a quiet violence, not against the world, but against every part of yourself that once made excuses. You don't flinch at discomfort. You invite it. Because discipline has taught you this sacred truth. Comfort is the enemy of kings. Every empire was built by men who chose repetition over emotion, who traded dopamine for dominance, who woke up every day and said, I don't need to feel like it. I need to finish it. That's discipline, not the illusion, not the poster, but the practice, the silent, brutal, holy practice of dying to your lesser self over and over and over again. And in that death, something magnificent is born. Integrity. Not the kind you post, the kind you carry, the kind that makes your word unshakable, your habits untouchable, and your future unchangeable. Because now, there is no other version of you. There is only this man, this standard, this code. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost your laziness. It will cost your vices. It will cost your false identities, your old wounds, your favorite excuses. But what you gain you, the real you, the one buried beneath every impulse, the one who rises not when it's convenient, but when it's required, the one who no longer relies on motivation because discipline became identity. And now the world shifts. It starts to respond to the force of who you've become. Opportunities move differently. People speak to you differently. Time itself bends around your consistency. Not because you got lucky, but because you got relentless. And when they ask how, when they wonder what changed, you look them in the eyes, not with ego, but with unshakable calm, and say the line, they'll never forget. I finally got tired of betraying myself. So I buried the old me, and I built the man the world could no longer ignore. That's the truth about discipline. It doesn't save you. It rebuilds you from the bones, from the blood, from the soul, and once you're rebuilt, you never go back, because there is no going back. Not when you've tasted the precision of presence, not when your life is no longer a reaction, but a response to purpose. Not when you've become the architect of your days, the keeper of your word, the guardian of your future. Now, discipline isn't something you do. It's something you are. You are the man who chooses clarity over comfort, standards over sympathy, vision over validation. You don't chase goals. You protect rhythm. You don't rush to outcomes. You trust the structure, because every day is no longer a gamble. It's a ritual, and the ritual is sacred. Ritual doesn't wait for approval. Ritual doesn't break for emotion. Ritual builds empires. And this discipline, it isn't seasonal. It isn't reactive. It doesn't depend on who's watching. It's devotion. Devotion to the highest version of you. Devotion to the man who lives with discipline in his blood and destiny in his bones. And now you lead, not just yourself, but anyone watching, anyone listening, anyone who has silently waited for proof that consistency still creates power. Because in a world obsessed with shortcuts, you became the long road. In a culture that sells comfort, you became the cost. And in a generation chasing, feeling, you became the framework. This is who you are now. Not once a week, not when it's trending, but always. And when they ask, what do you do when you don't feel like it? You won't answer with words. You'll answer with results, with rhythm, with a kind of quiet fire that burns without smoke. You've crossed over from reaction to responsibility, from desire to decision, from man to master. And this is the final truth. Discipline is not what makes you perfect. It's what makes you unshakable. Now walk. The world has already started moving around the man who no longer moves for anything but what he promised himself he would become. Because when a man keeps his promise to himself, he becomes inevitable. And inevitability doesn't knock. It enters. It doesn't ask for space. It creates it. It doesn't ask for respect. It commands it. This is the law of disciplined men. They do not wait to be chosen. They choose themselves again and again and again until the world has no option but to catch up. Because discipline is not about pain. It's about positioning your mind where no failure can keep you. Positioning your soul where no chaos can corrupt you. Positioning your habits so deeply in alignment that even on your worst days, you're still dangerous. That's what they never understand. It's not about the perfect morning. It's about the non-negotiable mission. It's not about working harder. It's about working with reverence. Discipline doesn't turn you into a machine. It turns you into a monument. Unshaken, unapologetic, unmoved by distraction. And you're no longer chasing potential. You are executing destiny. Not for applause, not for attention, but because there is no other life that satisfies a man who has seen his own capability and chosen to honor it. So let them call it intense. Let them say it's too much. Let them mock what they don't understand. They'll understand soon. They'll understand when your name echoes in rooms you've never stepped in. When your consistency becomes a compass for others, still lost. When your silence becomes more influential than their noise ever was. They'll understand that the man they laughed at for being disciplined was the same man. They'll one day study for how he built the life they only talked about. So keep going, keep dying to what no longer serves. Keep rising as the version of you that refuses to betray himself ever again. Because this isn't about goals. It's not about hustle. It's not even about winning. It's about becoming a man you never have to escape from. That is the real truth about discipline. And that is the man the world can no longer ignore. Because once the world can't ignore you, not because you were loud, but because you were relentless, everything changes. Doors open differently. People approach differently. Life responds with a kind of precision reserved only for those who have the courage to outlast their former selves. Because that's what you've done. You didn't just build habits. You buried identities. You killed the version of you that flinched, that waited, that hesitated, that needed to feel ready before he moved. And in his place, you built a force, a rhythm, a name that drips with integrity. Because you mean what you say now. You do what you decide. You don't just set goals. You become the kind of man they belong to. That's the highest form of discipline. To become so anchored in who you are, that who you were can never reach you again. So this is your legacy. Not what you leave behind, but what you live as. A walking example of what's possible when a man stops negotiating with weakness and starts living from his highest standard on repeat. Day in, day out. No exit, no excuses, only expansion. You now walk with something unshakable in your spirit, something that cannot be taught, something that cannot be sold, only earned in the fire of your own inner war. That's what people feel when you enter a room. Not your reputation, not your resume, but your repetition. They feel the weight of a man who has done hard things consistently, without needing a round of applause. That's the new royalty. Not fame, not fortune, but follow through. So walk like it, bleed like it, stand like it. Because the man you've become through discipline isn't here to prove anymore. He's here to build, and build so well that generations feel the echo of one man who decided, I will never abandon myself again. That is what discipline really is. And that is the man you are now, forever. And now we end not with an exhale, but with a rise. Because this isn't the finish line. It's a foundation. This isn't the summit. It's the starting ground for everything your former self never believed you could build. You've made it here not by luck, not by hype, but by blood and pattern. And you know now, discipline isn't just a practice. It's initiation. The rite of passage into a life most men will never touch because they're too busy negotiating with their comfort and confusing motion with movement. But not you. You've gone deeper. You've chosen the path that breaks the old bones, that burns the mask, that calls every part of you forward. Not someday now, because discipline isn't what makes you worthy. Discipline is what proves to the universe that you already believe you are. It is the daily act of honoring your sacred calling, not through words, but through execution. No more explaining, no more collapsing, no more treating your greatness like it's optional. You are the fire now, the flame, the unshakable center of your own world. And the man you are today is the reason your future no longer has to be a dream. It's a schedule, it's a structure, it's a system of honor you've built with your bare hands. And from here, you lead. You carry the frequency of discipline so deeply into everything you do that even your silence becomes instruction. People will wonder what changed. They'll try to trace it. They'll ask you to break it down. But there will be no formula. Only fire. Only identity. Only the decision you made to stop being a man of potential and become a man of execution. So walk. Walk with a memory of who you used to be. Not with shame, but with reverence. Because he was the soil. And you are the seed that refused to die. You are the oak tree that now casts a shadow long enough to shelter others still finding their roots. That is the truth about discipline. And now you live as the proof, not just once, not just when it's easy, but forever.